Welcome back. Today, amateur cyclists don't train enough for Zone 2 to work. That's my assertion. I'm going to look through a bunch of the evidence and I'm going to show you at the end of this video exactly how you should be training if you're a time crunched athlete. I think you're going to enjoy this one. The group of Finnish researchers, they took about 35 people and they gave half of them the exact same training plan the internet has been selling all of us for the past 5 years. It was 10 weeks, just under 7 hours a week on the bike. So I think that's pretty representative of what a time crunched athlete can do. 96.6% of it was below the first lactate threshold. That's actually easy. It's not like fake easy or Strava easy. It's lab verified, heart rate monitored easy. The mean heart rate was 63% of max. So no matter what way you slice that, it's easy. The other group trained 1 hour and 36 minutes a week. That's a time crunch week. But that's not a typo. That's actually how much they trained. The Zone 2 group did 4.4 times the hours. And at the end of 10 weeks, the group doing 90 minutes a week had put on 0.32 litres a minute of VO2 max. The Zone 2 group, they'd put on nothing. 0.02 litres. Statistically indistinguishable from having done nothing at all. Now, before you close the laptop, shut down YouTube and go and smash out a load of hard intervals until you're sick or burnt out, I need to tell you that the same study found something else and it collapses this story enormous. That number sat with me for weeks because it points to something the cycling internet's got badly structurally wrong. Every one of us is told that 80% of your riding should be easy. I've said it on this channel countless times. Definitely more than once. It's probably been on a thumbnail even. And I don't think it's wrong, but I think it's incomplete and why we can't headline read or just a short article and it gives you the answer. It's incomplete in a way that's costing riders like you entire seasons. So today, we're going to do this properly. We're going to do this thoroughly. Where the 80-20 number actually came from, what happens to it when you shrink it down to a 6 or an 8 hour training week, and what's the best available evidence at the moment? What does that say that a rider with a job and a family should be doing if he's free a couple hours during the week and maybe has a bit of time on a Saturday instead? Some of this is going to annoy people and that's okay because I just want to present the evidence and do with it as you will and fight in the comments. Start with the number itself because almost nobody who quotes it knows where that 80-20 number comes from. I've had Stephen Seiler on the podcast a bunch of times. Great lad. Always enjoy chatting to him. He didn't invent the 80-20 number. What he done was measure it. In the early 2000s, he and his colleagues went and they looked at what elite endurance athletes were actually doing. This was cross-country skiers, rowers, runners, and later cyclists. And the same pattern kept emerging in the data. It kept showing up. Somewhere around 80% of the sessions that they were completing were below the first inflection point, that first threshold, and a hard slice at the top and a surprisingly thin sliver in the middle. And that's the entire origin story of 80-20. It's an observation. It was never a prescription. But here's the detail that matters more than any other thing that I'm going to say today. Those athletes were training somewhere between 500 and 1,000 hours a year. The Norwegian rowers that Seiler studied went from about 924 hours a year in the 70s to over 1,100 hours a year by the 90s. 1,100 hours a year. That's 21 hours a week, every week, for a decade of training. You, if you're watching this and you have a job and you have a family or hobbies and friends, you're training 6, maybe 8 hours a week. You're not the same as those guys and girls. So when you take that ratio and you apply it into your week, you're copying the shape of something without copying the exact thing that made that shape. 80% of 21 hours, that's nearly 17 hours of easy riding a week. 80% of 6 hours, well, that's 4 hours and 48 minutes. Both of them have an 80-20 distribution, but only one of them is training. The other one isn't, and we'll get into that in a minute. Before we go any further on this, I want to deal with a problem that undermines this entire conversation. And it's a problem that almost nobody raises. You probably don't know what your intensity distribution actually is. There's a study by Danjo Sanders and his colleagues, and I think about this a lot. They took 15 road cyclists. They tracked 10 weeks of training and calculated the intensity distribution 3 different ways. By heart rate, the riders look like this: 87% easy, 9% in the middle, 4% hard. By power, 80% easy, 9% in the middle, 11% hard. Not too much difference between heart rate and power. But how do riders say they felt? 45% easy, 30% in the middle, 25% hard. Same riders, same 10 weeks, same rides. By heart rate, they're doing 4% hard riding, but they think they're doing 25% hard riding. So when someone tells you they're polarized or that they're stuck in the grey zone, the honest first question is, well, how did you measure this? And if the answer is, well, I just kind of winged it, it felt about right, that's not an answer. That's like you're vibing with a power meter attached to you. Now, I'm not telling you this to be pedantic or smart. I'm telling you this because if you're going to audit your own training after this video, and I do want you to do that, you need to audit it with the right tools, heart rate or power meter, and you need to know that your perception is going to lie to you, and it's going to lie to you in a very specific direction. Right, let's talk about the evidence and where it's pointing at your current weekly volume, not what the pros are doing. There are 3 studies that matter here, and I want to walk you through all 3 of these, including the parts that don't really suit my argument at all, and I want to give you those honest caveats. Let's start with Saylor's own work, because it's the cleanest work on this topic. 2013, 35 recreational cyclists, average VO2 max of 52. They already trained about 6 hours a week before they started this study. That is almost exactly the avatar of the person watching this video. He split them 4 ways for 7 weeks. One group did nothing but low intensity, 4 to 6 sessions a week. The other 3 groups swapped 2 of those sessions for interval sessions. 4 by 4 minutes, 4 by 8 minutes, or 4 by 16 minutes. Everything else stayed exactly the same. Combined across VO2 peak, power at peak VO2 and power at 4 millimoles, the low intensity group only improved 4.2% over 7 weeks. It's still pretty decent, but check out the other group now. The 4 by 8 minute group improved 11.4%. That's the same riders, same 6 hour week, same 7 weeks of training, nearly tripled the return from swapping 2 easy rides for 2 hard rides. Now I want to be precise because I've seen this study misquoted. The 11.4% is a combined figure across 3 variables, not a VO2 max number alone. And the low group intensity, they did improve. 4% isn't nothing. That's a pretty major improvement. But 4% for 6 hours a week for 7 weeks, when the guy beside you doing the exact same training, that he got 11% improvement for those same hours, that's a bad trade. I know what side of that trade I want to be on. The second study, it's a Finnish one, and I talked about this in the cold open. Matomäki and colleagues, 2023, 6.8 hours a week of genuinely low intensity for 10 weeks. VO2 didn't move. The high intensity group on 1.6 hours a week put on 0.32 litres a minute. The third, and this is a big study, LATE 2024, I'm going to throw these below, a group of Australian researchers led by Ben Cove pulled together 41 studies, 81 training groups, 797 trained cyclists. They asked 2 questions. Does polarized beat non-polarized? And does training more volume mean more improvement? So the answer to the first question was an emphatic no. No significant difference between distributions for VO2 max or time trial performance. The answer to the second one was, and I'd maybe print this out and pin it above your turbo trainer, there was no association between weekly training volume and change in VO2 max. None. No association with time trial performance improvement either. In their own words, the practical implications are that caution must be taken in relation to total training volume, because increased volume may not cause notable increases in performance. If you're trying to hit 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour, this makes it a lot easier. Fueling used to be the bit that I'd overthink the most. Mixing different things, trying to track carbs, and after a couple of hours, everything just felt way too sweet. This is the new 4Endurance 2-to-1 fueling line. I've been using it recently, and it's probably the simplest setup I've come across since I started cycling. Every serving is 30 grams of carbohydrates, so it's basically 1 gel and 1 bottle, and you're at 60 grams of carbs per hour. There's no real thinking needed while you're riding. I'll just sip the drink steadily and I'll take a gel when I need it. Same ratio across everything. So it all just fits together really nicely. The other thing I noticed straight away is how light it is. It's not overly sweet. So on longer sessions, it's just easier to keep taking on without getting that heavy, sickly feeling. And price-wise, it's actually insanely cheap. 79 cents for a gel and 30 cents for a drink serving, both giving you 30 grams of carbohydrates, which is pretty hard to beat anywhere on the market. It's a brand new line, gels and drinks for now, with more coming, and it's slotted straight into my training without much thought. If you're looking for a simpler way to fuel your sessions, go to 4endurance.com and check out the 2-to-1 line from 4Endurance. I'll link that in the show notes below too. So what did predict improvement was how many weeks the intervention ran for. Not how many hours a week, how many weeks. So here's where all of this lands, and it's a bit I actually want you to take away from this video. 80-20 is not a mechanism, it's a symptom. When an athlete trains 21 hours a week, they physically can't make most of that hard. Their body won't allow out. The recovery toll and the caloric intake is too high. The distribution collapses into 80-20 because it's the only shape 21 hours a week can take without the athlete falling apart. The ratio didn't make them fast, the volume made them fast, and the ratio is what the volume looks like from the outside, from that bird's eye view. We took a photograph of that outcome and we started selling it as a method. And when you copy that ratio at 6 hours a week, you don't just get a smaller version of the same stimulus, you get a totally different thing, because adaptation isn't driven by intensity on its own, it's driven by intensity multiplied by duration. Saylor has been studying this for 20 years and it gets quoted about 100 as often as the 80-20 line does. At 21 hours a week, you can buy your adaptation. You're buying it with duration, and you should, because it costs you almost nothing in terms of recovery. At 6 hours a week, you can't buy enough duration. There isn't enough of it available at any price, which means the only currency you have left is intensity. And intensity, unlike duration, it has a high recovery cost that scales fast. And that's your actual problem, not the ratio, the budget available. Now the part that complicates everything, and I promised you it was coming. Go back to the finished studies. The Zone 2 group's VO2 max didn't move, but their power at first inflection point went up by 17 watts. The intervals group went up by 15 watts. Statistically no difference between them. The Zone 2 group, on genuinely easy riding, raised their ceiling on what they could hold all day long, exactly as much as the interval group did. And both groups improved durability by the same amount. Their heart rate drift, their perceived effort, the physiological strain over a 3-hour ride, all of it got better equally in both groups. The researchers pointed out that the change in VO2 max didn't correlate with a change in durability at all. They're separate qualities driven by different things. So Zone 2 at 7 hours a week isn't broken. It's not just not doing the job that you're measuring. It's raising your aerobic threshold, your fatigue resistance, while you're staring at your VO2 max estimate and your 20-minute power on a climb, wondering why nothing's moving, why nothing is happening. And that matters enormously depending on what you actually do on the bike, what your targets are. Because if you're a crit racer, or if you're targeting 40-minute time trials, or if you're looking for your FTP to go up in the next few months, the evidence says intensity is where your 6 hours a week should be allocated. It's where it should go. But if you have a longer event, if you're going to ride Badlands, even something like a TAP or a Mallorca 312, like a 9-hour Gran Fondo, the Marmot, the thing that decides your day, it's not your VO2 max. It's whether you're the same rider at hour 6, hour 7, hour 8 as you were at hour 1. And that is bought with time on the bike. There's a body of work now from James Sprague and others showing durability tracks with accumulated low intensity volume, and that riders at higher levels with higher annual volumes hold their power far better deeper into a race or event. You cannot interval your way to having a smoother 7 hours. So what does the evidence say that we should actually do? Before I jump in and break that down, if this is complicated and if you want someone to just apply this for you, that's what we do. I've had 1,400 episodes on the podcast. I've talked to the best minds in the sport and I've aggregated all their knowledge and we've built it into a system. And we call this system Not Done Yet. It's for athletes who know that their best chapter is still ahead, that their next best chapter needs to be written, and we're there to help you write it. We break training down different to everyone else. I think performance is built on 5 pillars. We'll plan out your training around your event. We'll plan your nutrition, your exact macros every meal. Your strength and conditioning will be programmed around that. Your strength training is so vital to it, but also your recovery protocols are built in, and that community. We found that tying yourself into a community, you go further when there's accountability built in. We call it the 5 pillars of performance, and it's what we've built our Not Done Yet coaching community around. I'd love to have you as a part of it. Let's see if it's a fit. It's not a fit for everyone. There is a cost to it. It's $195 a month. I'm going to leave a link down below. It's roadmancycling.com/apply. You can go and check that out. And if it's a fit, I'll get back to you in the next 48 hours or so and we'll work from there. Now, let's jump into what the findings actually said, because here are the findings that changed my mind on this. And this was published in Sports Medicine in January 2025. Michael Rosenblatt led a network meta-analysis of individual participants' data, 13 studies, 348 athletes, and one of the 17 authors on it was none other than our boy Stephen Saylor. Across the whole group, polarized and pyramidal, it came out the same. No difference in VO2 max, no difference in time trial performance. But when they split by performance level, the direction flipped. Competitive athletes improved VO2 max more with a polarized distribution. Recreational athletes improved more with a pyramidal distribution. Pyramidal means still mostly easy with a real deliberate chunk of work in the middle and less at the very top. The godfather of polarized training put his name to this paper saying polarized is probably not the right shape for recreational athletes. Was my takeaway from it anyway. There's also a small Portuguese study that I like a lot because the subjects, they're basically you and me. There's 14 male recreational cyclists. Average age of them was 41. They were training 7.5 hours a week for 16 weeks on a pyramidal plan. So that was about 57% easy, 31% in the middle and 12% hard. Their power of 4 millimoles went up by 38 watts. That's a large effect size. Body fat percentage went down. And when the researchers looked at which zone predicated the improvement, it wasn't the hard stuff, it was the stuff in the middle. Now, it's a small study, 14 people, no control group, so maybe hold this one loosely. But it's 14 41-year-olds on 7.5 hours a week training volume. That's so rare in the literature, and I wish it wasn't. So let's break this down and get practical. I want to give you 5 things to finish this video that you could do all of these like starting straight away. First, you need to stop protecting the ratio and start protecting the session count. 2 quality sessions a week, not 3, not 4, not 1, 2 every week for months. That's your floor. That's non-negotiable because in Cove's meta-analysis, the thing that predicted improvement, it was the number of weeks you kept doing it. Consistency across months. It beats the optimization of 1 week. This isn't a motivational fluff to stick on a poster. This is what the regression analysis is saying. Let me tell you about AG1 who are supporting today's episode. You all know my thing. Consistency beats intensity every time. It's the small things you do every single day that add up. And that goes for what you put into your body too. For me, one of those is AG1. It's a daily core supplement blend. A broad range of micronutrients including vitamins, minerals and bacterial cultures for your gut, all in one scoop. Think of it as the supplements I'd be taking anyway, blended into one. I have it first thing in the morning, same as my coffee, whether I'm home or I'm living out of a kit bag at a race. 1 scoop, once a day, and I don't think about it again. So if you want to build that habit, head to drinkag1.com/roadman cycling to claim an amazing offer. It's €20 off your first month, a free welcome kit, 5 free travel packs, and vitamin D3 and K2. That link again, that's drinkag1.com/roadman cycling. I'm going to put the link in the description below. This is an exclusive offer for all our listeners. Second, consolidate your easy hours instead of spreading them. And that one's straight from Stephen Seiler's literature. It's something he mentioned on the podcast to me as well. His advice to the 6-hour-a-week athlete doing 1 hour a day is to stop, double up, make one day a 2-hour ride and take a day off. 6 1-hour rides and 1 2-hour ride plus 4 1-hour rides. They're the same number at the end of your week, but they're completely different training stimulus. The 2-hour ride generates a signal that a 1-hour ride doesn't get near. Thirdly, your long ride is the most valuable ride on the week. That's where your extra hour should be allocated. Try to extend that before you extend anything else. If you find the 7th hour available to train this week, it doesn't go on to a Tuesday evening or spread in 15-minute additions to each of the sessions. It goes at the end of your long Saturday ride. Fourth, pick your session by what you actually race. For racing VO2 max on limited hours, your best supported single session in the entire literature is going to be 4 by 8 minutes at the hardest pace you can hold for all 4 minutes with 2 minutes easy between them. Mike Barry used to coach me and used to call these capacity efforts. That's the one that won Seiler's research and it's the one that's still standing. But if your event is long, if you're getting ready for, like I said, Badlands or one of these ultra long distance fondos at 3-1-2, one of your 2 quality sessions, it becomes a longer interval in the middle zone, inside the long ride rather than another VO2 max session. Fifth, audit yourself by heart rate or power, not by feeling, and do that straight away this week. Pull up your last 4 weeks, work out the actual percentage of time below your first inflection point at lactate threshold. I want to be straight with you about where the evidence is thin, because I'd rather you trust the next video and I present the full facts as I understand them here. The Finnish study used recreationally active people, not trained cyclists. The Portuguese one had 14 riders and no control group. Cove's team graded their own certainty of evidence evidence as low, and the volume analysis was exploratory. Nobody's run a clean study that I would love to read, that I wish I could present to you. Nobody has taken 200 riders in their 40s training 6 to 8 hours a week with a job and randomized them for a year. So what I'm giving you is the direction of the best available evidence that I could find. It's not a law of physics, but I feel it's directionally correct. The direction is consistent, and it's been consistent for a decade. And it says the same thing every single time. At that 6 to 8 hour a week volume, the split is not your leveler. The 80-20 rule was never a rule. It was a photograph of what a 20-hour week looked like. And we've spent 5 years handing it to people as a prescription when they have 6 hours a week to train. So right now, go and count your sessions. Go and lengthen your Saturday or Sunday ride. And if you want a second pair of eyes on any of your training files, please apply to our Not Done Yet coaching group. We can go through all your historic files. We do this every week inside Not Done Yet, and the links for that are below. I hope you found this useful. I wish it was more complete than it is. I wish it was more thorough, but the studies just aren't done yet. And I'll catch you in the next one.